Hi, friend Lisa Thompson from our Bayside Granite Bay campus. So I remember having these parenting moments when my kids would act out in public. They would behave in a way that went against how we were equipping and raising them up to be. They'd forget their manners, they'd be rude or disrespectful towards me, have a temper tantrum in the middle of Costco, tell me no in front of a group of moms at the park. And I would always feel these eyes and people staring at me, judging me by the behavior of my kids. And I remember this moment where I got into this screaming match with one of my kids. I was exasperated by their behavior. And a few minutes in, I began to see my reflection in them. Wow, I wonder where they learned that from. I'm treating them no different than how they have treated me. But when I took the moments to respond in love to their unbecoming behavior, especially a love that did not dishonor them, it was full of grace, understanding, patience, and really seeking to serve their best interests, the results were always so much better. It was not about how I looked as a mom, but that I'd put their best interests above my reputation and sought to serve and love them in a way that demonstrated God's power in me. In 1 Corinthians 13, Paul is defining what love is and what love isn't in the context of community and ways spiritual gifts were given to edify believers through love. And while the Corinthians were not living this agape love out with one another, Paul is encouraging and challenging them to consider the more excellent way, a way that honors God and honors people. Love does not dishonor. Other translations include is not rude or acts disgracefully or dishonoring or acts unbecomingly. You see, Paul sees the ways the Corinthians were attacking one another, puffing themselves up and comparing themselves by behaving rudely towards one another. Spiritual gifts are given by God to build and edify the church. How ironic that the gifts were causing them to tear each other down. And it's a great reminder for us as well that when someone is unloving or rude towards us, our MO is often to respond back in the same way. We get caught in this cycle of you hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you back. You said this about me, I'm going to say this about you. You were rude to me, I'm going to be rude back. We can get defensive and we want to protect our own interests and reputations. But friend, when we seek their best interests above our own, we are able to love them in the same way that God loves us. Romans 5:8 says, but God demonstrates his own love for us, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. You see, in the family of God, we don't get to opt out of loving and serving people because they irritate us or they anger us or we don't agree with them. Some of those extra grace required personalities. Maybe they've even done or said things that hurt us. But we are called to opt in, to love them in a way that God has loved us. Think about how God responds to you and I when our behavior has been dishonoring. He's not rude. He's not condemning or shameful or putting his own interests above our own. No, he's kind and he's gracious and he's patient with us. And this is the kind of love that Paul wants us to think about giving away to others, even on their worst days. He wants us to have the same mindset that Christ had for us. Paul says in Philippians 2:5-10, that in our relationships with one another, we need to have the same mind that Christ had, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used for his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. Being made in human likeness and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. If we are going to be a loving and honoring community that lives out this transformative love, we need to humble ourselves. I need to humble myself. We need to put aside our own interests and use the gifts that God has given us to build others up instead of seeking to protect and build ourselves and reputations up. Romans 12:10 says, love one another with brotherly affection, undo one another in showing honor. And with watching eyes and ears to this kind of love, friend, We will build the church and glorify God. The world will know we are Christians by this kind of love.